Sometimes even genies can't make all their wishes come true. Barbara Eden always held on to the dream that her son would recover from drug addiction, a problem that began when he was a teen and continued throughout his adult life.
He told me he was very young. He told me he was, I think he was 13 or something. You know, but I didn't know.
As his use of drugs worsened, he began to show physical signs that alerted Barbara to his problem.
I always knew that he was well when he was pumped up. The minute he began to get thin and he lost interest in bodybuilding, I knew that something was wrong.
Barbara never abandoned her son throughout his struggle and always believed he would recover. Her optimistic outlook was something she acquired in her early years growing up in the Depression. Barbara Jean Huffman was born on August 23, 1934, in Tucson, Arizona. The family moved to San Francisco a few years later. She watched her mother, Alice, and father, Harrison, struggle to make ends meet.
My dad worked for the telephone company, and he didn't make a lot of money. San Francisco's an expensive city to live in. You know, I would have one pair of shoes to go to school in. Those were my school shoes. I'd have one pair to go to church in, and get them once a year.
When Barbara started school, her teacher noticed something was wrong.
Well, the minute I got to school, the teacher said she can't see the blackboard and the chalk on the blackboard, so she needs to have her eyes examined. And I did, and immediately got glasses. My mother went in the bathroom and cried. I remember that.
By the age of 6, she was forced to wear glasses and an eye patch to strengthen her vision.
And I was the ugliest kid you've ever seen. My aunt and my mother, again, decided that pigtails were cute. And I had the tightest... Pippi Longstockings had nothing on me. I mean, they stuck straight out like horns. And I was so skinny. And then this patch on the eye.
Barbara's insecurity about her looks did not daunt her spirit, which was greatly influenced by the women in her household. This was especially true of her relationship with her mother, a close relationship that would last her entire life.
I had my grandmother, my aunt, my mother, my mother's friends. It was a nice, secure childhood. I had a very happy childhood.
With her mother's love and support, Barbara was secure at home, but out in public she was extremely shy. By the time she was in elementary school, her mother tried to coax her out of her shell by encouraging her to sing.
When I was a little girl, my mommy would sing, and I would sing when we'd do the dishes. And I guess they decided I could sing.
Money became more scarce as her mother stopped working to care for her new baby sister, Allison.
I was 12, you know, so this was like a wonderful gift, a doll.
She was like a real big sister to me. She had lots of fun things to touch and a room that was always perfect and clean and white buck shoes. All the things that I thought were really fun.
By the time Barbara entered high school, she had removed her eye patch and glasses and was becoming more comfortable in her own skin. She worked part-time to pay for singing lessons at the renowned San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
Well, it was called the 4-4 plan. And you went to school 4 hours and you worked 4 hours. They only let you do it if you had good grades.
Barbara graduated in 1949 from Abraham Lincoln High School. She enrolled in San Francisco City College and studied music. One day, Barbara's mother, Alice, was listening to her daughter sing and noticed something was missing.
But you don't mean a word you're singing. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, no, you're hitting every note perfectly. You don't mean it. She said, why don't you take a few acting lessons? So I did.
Barbara's days were full between her job at the Wells Fargo Bank, her college classes, and acting lessons with her new drama coach.
She said, this is where you belong. She said, why are you going to City College? So she gave me a scholarship, and I studied with her then, full-time.
While Barbara may have never felt beautiful, others were beginning to notice her striking features, including her acting teacher, who encouraged her to enter a beauty contest.
I wasn't anywhere near what they'd want for a Miss San Francisco, Miss America. I just wasn't. But she said, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Just go. Do it. Try.
In 1951, Barbara won the title of Miss San Francisco.
It was another breakthrough, yeah. Breaking the ice and releasing a few of those inhibitions.
With newfound confidence, her mentor and teacher gave her a final piece of advice.
She said, you should either go to New York or go to L.A., but you've had enough. She said, you've had enough. You know what you're doing. Well, that was scary. That was really scary.
On the words of her acting coach, Barbara packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles.
I chose Los Angeles. I knew no one in New York. It scared me to death. I wasn't that brave. But I did go down to L.A. because I had an aunt and uncle down here, and I could live with them. I didn't jump far out of the nest.
Barbara soon adjusted to life in L.A. She got her first driver's license and began pounding the pavement, landing her very first interview with the head of casting at Warner Brothers, who told her she didn't have the Hollywood look.
And he said, honey, he said, you know, you're a pretty little girl, but you're not Hollywood type. He said, you'll never make it here. He said, this is what they want. And he showed me a picture of his daughter and said, big tatas. Only he didn't say that. And I looked at the picture. I looked at him. And how could he... I was so naive. How could he talk about his own daughter like that, you know?
Despite his discouragement, Barbara's optimism kept her going.
I was about 20, I think, at the time, and I was sitting there stewing over it, thinking, well, you know, everyone can't look alike. They need character actresses. They make a living, too. So why can't I be a character? Why do I have to be a glamour girl? I don't have to do that.
In the early 50s, Barbara Eden moved out of her relative's house and into the Hollywood Studio Club, a boarding house for struggling actors. One day, she stepped in to help a friend rehearse some lines for a Universal film.
And I went over and did the scene with him. And as we were walking out, a man stopped me and said, do you have an agent? And I said, no. And he said, well, you do now.
Her agent quickly went to work, shaping his newfound client by giving her a complete makeover. He began by changing her last name from Huffman to Eden. He also suggested she start wearing sexier outfits, especially to her first interview with the director of the Johnny Carson show on CBS.
And he said, well, thank you very much. He said, but I don't think you're right for this part. He said, I really need a dumb blonde. And someone who can't sing. And I just said, oh, all right. He said, but we'll have something for you. I said, thank you. And I walked out. I was so disappointed because I needed the job.
As she walked out of the director's office, she was eyed by a man who turned out to be the show's producer. Their exchange got her the job.
Afterwards, the director came over and apologized to me, which I thought was very big of him. He said, I am so sorry. He said, you know, you forget that people study in this business and know their jobs. He said, I was just looking for the stereotypical type to put in this role, and I didn't want to work for it. And after that, I did 13 of the shows with Johnny.
This calls for a celebration. Oh, yes.
Off and running at CBS, Barbara landed a guest spot on the legendary I Love Lucy. In Lucille Ball, she found a nurturing friend.
She was not what I had heard about at all. She couldn't have been more kind. While we were working, she said, I would like very much to have you under contract. She said, I think you have a lot of potential, and I don't see many girls who can play comedy, who can look like you look.
At the same time that Lucy was courting Barbara, she was also being pursued by 20th Century Fox for a studio contract.
While I was there, I did get the phone call, and I had to tell her that I was going over to Fox. And I've often wondered what would have happened if I had stayed with her.